program. I encourage you guys to join us in the discussion as we have some fun with Ray Roberts, the All-American who spent 9 seasons, count them 9, in the National Football League. We're going to, of course, honor Danny Wilmer, who passed away in February on today's program. One of the best recruiters of all time, Danny Wilmer. We'll talk State of the Union for Virginia football right now on the program. So join us on the discussion. Nancy Gibson, Tiffany Gibson, Naomi Yoder, Showalter, thank you kindly for joining us on the broadcast. I think you guys are going to like today's program. Judah Wickower, I'm going to reach out to Ray Roberts via Skype. You confirm the feeds that are live. I saw us live on my personal Facebook. I saw us live on I Love CVille. As we get rocking and rolling here, you confirm that we're live on Hootie Ratcliffe's too, if you can. All right, I'm going to reach out to Ray Roberts. Judah? Judah, Hootie's page, Twitter. I'm not seeing it. That's why I'm saying it to you. You're going to want to take a look. Yeah. All right, Ray, we got you on the line here. We're going to start the program in about 10 seconds here, and then we'll go straight to you, Ray Roberts. All right, Judah Wickower, we have Ray Roberts on the line, and then we can, I would restart it once you get it going, and then we can start the program when you're ready, Judah. Good Tuesday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and thank you kindly for joining us on the Jerry and Jerry Show. It's a pleasure to connect with you guys wherever you get your social media and podcasting content. The Jerry and Jerry Show airs on your favorite platforms. Today's program is a great one. We have Ray Roberts on the line. Mr. Roberts, 9 seasons in the National Football League, an All-American at the University of Virginia, a household name if you follow the orange and blue, and a man that knows a friend of the program that has recently passed away, and Danny Wilmer. We're going to pay honor to Danny Wilmer on today's program, a guy who has touched the hearts of so many, a man that was responsible for the maturation process of so many young men who have donned the orange and blue here in Charlottesville. Hootie Ratcliffe played a fantastic legacy and honor to Danny Wilmer on jerryratcliffe.com, and today's an opportunity to hear Ray Roberts' thoughts on how this coach, how this fallen man has inspired or influenced his life. Judah Wickower is behind the camera. He's the director and producer. Judah, if we can welcome the star of our show, Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe, the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer, on a program that already has a number of states watching the show. Jerry Ratcliffe, the introduction to Mr. Ray Roberts is yours.
It's my honor and my pleasure. I've known Ray ever since he stepped on grounds at UVA in the late 80s. Continued his career through the early 90s and became an All-American, All-ACC, 2-time Jacobs Blocking Trophy winner, best blocker in the ACC for 2 straight years. I mean, that's phenomenal. That doesn't happen very often. And went on to a fabulous career with the Seahawks and the Lions, paving the way for the likes of Barry Sanders, 2,000 yards as a standout left tackle, and just an overall sweet guy. Maybe not on the football field, but off of it for sure.
As the kids like to say, this guy's a big-time baller. A big-time baller on the show, Ray Roberts.
Big-time baller. And
I try to be. I haven't been. I don't know if anyone's called me in a long time, though, Jerry.
Well, your nickname is Big Puddin', right?
Yeah,
a lot of people don't know that, I think.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people forgot that or didn't know it to begin with. But, yeah, Ray's just a fantastic guy, and it's been a privilege to know him all these years. And it's great that he's kept a strong connection with UVA and the Charlottesville community. He lives in Seattle now, where he works with the Special Olympics and spreads his goodwill all over the country. Ray, thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule.
Oh, thank you guys for having me, man. Jerry, I've always been a big fan of yours, and like you said, I've known you for a long, long time, and you do a great job of covering Cavalier football, basketball, the whole nine. And then obviously coming on and talking about Coach Wilmer. That's just a dude that has always been a part of my life and a part of my journey, and just someone that I just love and respect like no other. So
Yeah, we were all saddened by the fact that he passed last week, and got to see him shortly before he passed away. Went out to his house, and it's very heartbreaking to see that. But I read a quote from you, Ray, where you said he changed my life. Can you talk a little bit about your early encounters with Danny when you were growing up in Asheville, North Carolina?
yeah, so it was really interesting because I was probably a better basketball player in high school than I was a football player, but I was a football player.
Yeah.
So I played basketball, me too, and so I wasn't like, I wouldn't say I was.
Got him frozen right there.
Stuff, and so, but
Connection's a little choppy. You got a choppy connection there, Judah?
sorry, I can hear you guys in my ear.
That's all right.
Yeah, the connection's a little choppy here, Ray. We got you. I think we got you back here. Can you see me?
That's frozen. I think it's frozen again.
Yep, we're going to try reconnect here with Ray Roberts. The connection's a bit choppy here. Ray, we're going to call you right back here. We're reaching out to him via Skype, and we're going to see if we can get him back on the line. Judah, I'm going to Skype him back in here. I want to hear how he was a better basketball player than he was a football player. I mean, man, that puts things in perspective. How good was he at basketball right there?
I wouldn't want to run into one of his screens.
Amen, brother. I mean, he's live from, is he in Seattle right now?
Mm-hmm.
He's live from Seattle. So working with a cross-country connection here. I'm curious to hear his connections to Danny Wilmer as well. I thought what you put in perspective on JerryRatcliffe.com with Danny Wilmer's impact was very well written, Jerry Ratcliffe. And I know he meant quite a bit to you.
Yeah, he was a special guy. I probably crossed the line. Writers and coaches aren't supposed to become friends, but we became steadfast friends for a long, long time.
And I think we got Ray back on the line here. Ray, we got you there. I'm hoping the connection is a smidge better here. And you know what was startling of what you were just saying is that Ray Roberts was a better basketball player than football player at one time. That is a scary proposition, my friend. You setting a pick or going for a rebound in the paint would scare the bejeebus out of anybody, my friend.
Well, I will say, like, the physicality of the way I played, I fouled out of a lot of games. But no, I was a big time. I don't say big time, but I was all conference basketball player in high school and all that kind of stuff. And but the cool thing about Coach Wilmer was my high school football coach, Joe Stedman, had coached with Coach Wilmer at James Madison. And so he told Coach Wilmer, you should come watch this kid play football. And Coach Wilmer, they couldn't make it to my games because it was a little bit late in the recruiting cycle. So Coach Wilmer came to one of my basketball games. And in that game, I think I had like 18 points and about 12 boards, about 5 block shots, a couple dunks. And after the game, Coach Wilmer came into our locker room and said, son, we don't have anybody like you on our defensive line. and so he offered me a scholarship right there in the locker room. And I hadn't even taken a visit to Virginia or anything. And so finally got around to do the official visit up there. And on my official visit, I met Sean Moore and Tony Covington, and Derek Boyd was like my host at that time. And I had already verbally committed to Tennessee, but after going to dinner with Coach Wilmer and just the way my mom just really took a liking to him. Like, my mom could see right through all the BS. And so she just really took a liking to Coach Wilmer, and that kind of sealed the deal for us. And on our way home, we're about Lynchburg, going back to Asheville, and I just told my dad, hey, I think I'm gonna go to Virginia. He was like, what? Like, you said you're gonna go to Tennessee. I'm like, nah, I think Virginia's a place for me. Like, it just fits me better. Coach Wimmer is like really excited about what I can do on the football field, and so that's how I ended up at UVA.
What did that mean to you, Ray, to get that kind of opportunity coming out of Asheville?
Well, it was huge because we've had like a couple of basketball players from our high school that were big time. Like this one kid that was older than me that graduated, my sister Buzz Peterson, was the state high school player of the year over Michael Jordan, and actually played with Jordan at Carolina and all this other kind of stuff. So he was like the biggest like name dude that people could remember. And then we have a few guys go to some smaller schools, but not like a big time kind of a thing. And so it was kind of cool for me because I just wanted the kids from my community to see that they could go and do these types of things. And even academically, a lot of people didn't think I'd be able to make it academically at UVA. And it started out slow, but I ended up, finishing strong at UVA academically too. So my mission at UVA was bigger than me just playing football. It was setting an example for some of the young kids in my community that may had dreams of playing college football or going to the NFL or whatever it was. And I just put it on my shoulders to be the guy that tried to lead the way.
Put in perspective for us, Asheville, North Carolina. My parents live in Hendersonville, and I know Western North Carolina is far removed from ties to the University of Virginia. And that part of North Carolina has got allegiances with a lot of collegiate programs. And I know when you were in high school, Phil Fulmer was not yet the head coach at Tennessee. I believe he was the offensive line coach at Tennessee at that time. So you saying verbally yes to Tennessee and then saying no to Tennessee and going to a school in Central Virginia, that probably sent some shock waves throughout Western North Carolina.
Yeah, a lot of people thought I was crazy for doing it because I think Tennessee had just won the national championship in like 81 or 82. And so there is a real powerful football team and biggest stadium at the time in the country. I think they had the biggest stadium. When we took our visit down there, I just remember standing in the middle of the field that kind of introduced us at the time. And I looked at my dad and I said, there's more people in the stadium than there is in all of Asheville. Because at the time, there was maybe our population in Asheville was maybe 60 or 70,000. And that stadium held 90,000 people. And so I was like, if I make a mistake, like it's going to be 90,000 people yelling at me, Dad. And so it was a huge, huge stadium. It was unbelievable, like the pomp and circumstance, everything that was going on. It was unbelievable. Coach Majors was the coach there. I can remember going through the locker room and, I'm 6'5" and 250 pounds. And the players like, oh, yeah, coach, we can put some weight on him. And I'm thinking like, what? Like, am I not big enough? And so it was really interesting to visit there. I mean, it was a great visit and all that stuff. It just when I met Sean, like Derek Boyd, who was like a backup receiver from Winston-Salem, he was like my official host. But he hung out with Sean Moore and Tony Covington. And Tony Covington was from North Carolina as well. Sean is from Martinsville, which is like an adopted North Carolina. And so we just hit it off. And I just told my dad, I was like, my personality just fits there better than it does at Tennessee. And then the other underlying factor to it was my mom was a janitor at our elementary school. And one of the administrators there told her that it was good for me to go to Tennessee because I wouldn't graduate from Virginia. And so my mom never graduated middle school. And so she just took that as the gospel. And so I was like, man, you can't tell my mom that. You can't put limitations on what I can do. And so that was another factor of me switching from Tennessee and going to Virginia as well.
I guess when you first got here, it sounded like things might have been a little intimidating, and Danny Wilmer kind of set your mind straight.
Yeah, so, I was way out of my element, like just from a culture perspective. Like when I say I was poor, I was dirt poor. Like I came to Charlottesville with a duffel bag and I had 2 shirts, a pair of pants, and some shoes. That was all I had. And so you get there and people are driving around in Mercedes, BMWs and nice cars, and they have all the clothes and all this stuff. And like, I wore all the stuff that the team gave us. That was my clothes, the sweats, the shorts, the the shoes. I like back then I wore my turf shoes, his tennis shoes. Like I had nothing. And so it was a culture shock. And so it kind of zapped some of my confidence. And so one day I was walking through U-Haul and I'm just, you're kind of tall and I'm kind of slumped over and just kind of staring at the ground. And Coach Wilmer pulled me into the men's basketball locker room. And he said, he got behind me, pulled my shoulders back, made me stand up tall. And he said, "Hey, boy, like these grounds are yours for the taking. Like you belong here. Like this is your team, your gym, your grounds, your classroom, your football. Like everything he could see, he was naming, saying it was mine. And he's like, and I just want you to carry yourself that way. And it was something about it. Probably was like a 5-minute conversation because I was about to go into the U-Haul to a basketball game. And it just changed my whole mindset in that one moment. And then from that point on, I was just like, you damn right. Like, this is my place, and I'm going to make it my place, and I'm going to do what I got to do to be successful here. And I was still on the defensive line at the time. And so that just really lit a fire in me, man, that just no one had ever told me that in my life. No one had ever said, like, this is yours to have, like everything that I got, I had to work really hard to get it. Had a really tough childhood, growing up the way my family life was. And so to be somewhere where someone saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and then actually called it out, you're talking in the Bible, always saying, God is like placing his hands on you. Well, he put his hands on me and said, this is your place. And so it just really changed my perspective from that point on. And then I just became a different dog. I was different in the weight room. I was better in the classroom. And then on the field, it was just, it was unbelievable. Even as a defensive lineman, I fought all the time. And I didn't let the offensive lineman get the like extra little push on me and all these different kinds of things. So people were just like, man, like what happened to this dude? And nobody really knew what Coach Wilmer had said to me. And it just really lit me up. So I was ready to go from that point on. And then I got moved to offense. And
there's a story about that.
Yeah. Like, and so this is like I was ahead of my time because I was on the phone, and this is when you had the phone booths. I was in the phone booth trying to call Tennessee to see if I could transfer to Tennessee because I was going to play defense there. And I'm like, I don't want to play offense. And somehow my dad found out and drove to Charlottesville and spent about 15 minutes telling me what I was going to do, which was stay in Charlottesville. And that's what I did. And so I remember one of the practices, I just couldn't I didn't know what I was doing on offense. I couldn't learn the plays and stuff. And so Coach O'Brien and Obi and Coach Welsh got into a big argument. We used to have 3 fields. So you know how they had a big practice facility? It used to be 3 football fields. So 1 defense, 1 offense, and then we do our team stuff in the middle. When on that middle field, the 3 of them were arguing over me. Like Coach Wilmer wanted me back on defense, and Coach Welsh wanted me on offense, and Obi just wanted me to get the plays right. and so it was really interesting to see this happening, all over me. And so ultimately, obviously I stayed on the offensive line, and that was great, and had a great career there, and loved Coach Welsh's insight to be able to see that in me. But yeah, Coach Wilmer was my guy, man. He was always fighting for me. Even in that situation, he was like, there's nobody over there that can block him, but you want him, but you take him away from me and all this stuff. And so then your brain goes all over the place years later because you're going like, man, we ended up with Chris Slade. Like he would have been on one side, I'd have been on one side. Like, so who knows? But no, Coach Wilmer, even just the way he talked to my parents, you're like, Coach Wilmer can be an intense, emotional kind of a dude. Yep. And so when we came to the official visit, we were at the Aberdeen barn, and he was getting so excited trying to tell my parents like his plans for me. He knocked the drink over all in my mom's lap, and so I'm thinking to myself like, man, this dude needs to like calm down, bro. Like my mom, we don't have a whole lot, and you just spilled like a drink all over my mom's clothes. And even in that though, my mom was like, there's something about that man. And that was at that dinner where he told my mom like when he leaves here, I promise you, he's going to be a man. And so I think, that type of commitment to me and that type of conviction in what he was saying, it was more than just hey, we just need to get another big body on our team, and then we'll have somebody else doing the same thing next year. He was really convicted in his commitment to me and as a person, and I think that's what sold him on my mom and dad.
Yeah. George. Once upon a time, I sat in Joe Paterno's office interviewing him, and they were going to open the season with Virginia, I think, or play him early. And he told me that George Welsh was the greatest evaluator of talent he had ever been around. So I guess George saw something in you as a potential left tackle. And if I recall, they had recruited Terry Kirby, who was the National High School Offensive Player of the Year. And George said, well, if we're going to have an All-American running back, we need an All-American left tackle to open the holes for him, and you were the guy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the thing about that, Jerry, is like I didn't know that story until later on. In my post on social media, I said, at one point, life punched me in the face, and Coach Wilmer took me in, and so I was standing with Coach Wilmer. I had my wife and I had separated, and I just kind of kicking myself in the butt and just sleeping in my car and all kind of stuff, and Coach Wilmer found out about it and said sent his wife Myrna to come get me. And so he's like, hey, I got this basement apartment. You're going to stay here in this basement apartment. You and I are going to figure out what the next moves are, and you can stay here until you get yourself right. And so one day we were just having some lunch, and I said, Coach Wimmer, how did I end up on offense? And he said, well, we're going down through Tidewater. We're all in this van driving together. And I was asking George, why are we moving Ray Roberts to why do we move Ray Roberts to tackle? And he said, because if we're going to have an All-American running back, we need an All-American left tackle. I'm like, well, why didn't you guys tell me that?
Would have been nice.
No one told me that. No one told me the rhyme or reason for why I was moving, And so I'm like, if you had told me that, maybe I'd have had a different perspective on it, at the time. But yeah, so I had been a topic of conversation with the two of them for quite some time. And a lot of it, was built on this vision that Coach Welsh had that was beyond what any of us could see. Because obviously Terry Kirby didn't just jump on the scene his senior year. This dude was a monster from the time he got into high school football. And so Coach Welsh was already a couple years ahead of everybody, trying to get the situation set up so that we could have this dynamic football team. And we had Nicky Fisher and Marcus Wilson, really good running backs. But Terry Kirby was, a game changer in his talent and ability and stuff. And so at the time, could not see the vision when it first happened. But after I got over there and had success and figured out what I was doing, man, there's no other position I'd rather play, and it fit me just perfectly. And Coach Wilmer reminded me that I didn't have to play like an offensive lineman. I could play like a defensive lineman, still be aggressive, go after guys, finish dudes, put them on their back, like all those kinds of things. And that's how I played, and I played that way all through the NFL. I was never one of the dudes that kind of let the defense dictate to me. I try to dictate to them all the time, and so that I can use my athletic ability and all that kind of stuff. And man, Coach Wilmer, I'm glad that I got the time to spend with him when I stayed with him, because just the wisdom that he had for me, and then the love that he had for me. I don't know if there are very many coaches that are going to find a guy that they coached, 20 years before and said, hey, come move in with me, like when you're having a tough time, and I could stay as long as I wanted, all those kinds of things. And at the time that's when his ankle was really first starting to bother him and all that kind of stuff. But
right.
And then the piece of property he had out there had this little pond or creek on it. Mm-hmm. And he would have my sons come out, and they'd be fishing and riding the four-wheelers. And the only thing that was a little nerve-wracking is that every time they left, he was giving them weapons, hey, take this knife with you, take this thing. And I'm like, Coach Rimmer, like, no, like, no, they're not ready for that yet, you know. And oh boy, they're just like, I'm gonna teach them how to whittle this wood, and he's like teaching them how to make, whittle the wood and all this stuff. And so like just this dude, his love for people that he loved was ginormous, and it's amazing that he had that type of love for a lot of people. It's hard to give that much to one person, and like I think Greg McClellan ended up going and stand with Coach Wimmer at one time.
Yeah.
The way that you listen to all the different stories, there were some guys I know that played at Virginia Tech. When they saw the post about Coach Wimmer, they're like, man, Coach Wimmer recruited me too, and they had love for Coach Wimmer. So this dude just had a way of like injecting himself into your life in a way that that he's there, but he's not getting in your way, but he's behind you, like pushing all the time. You can do it. You got it. I'm here with you. Don't worry about it. Don't be afraid. I love you. Like he was like that type of dude. And those types of people are hard to find because it was genuine. It was authentic. It wasn't something that he was putting on just to get you to the school. It was something that lasted a lifetime, and you don't see that a whole lot, anymore. You may see guys saying their coaches when they go back for like alumni weekend or something like that. But Coach Wimmer was like in my ear all the time, in the NFL, once I retired, when I got married, during my divorce, about, with my kids, like everything. He was, this dude was intertwined into my entire life. So just love that dude with everything I have.
Yeah, he was special. You're right. You don't find that kind of genuine love anymore. There's so many fake people in the business and telling kids whatever they want to hear. He was definitely a unique guy, no question about it.
I'll throw this to you, Ray.
Yeah.
What'd you make when you saw that he passed away? First things that went through your mind.
Well, I mean, I knew that he was having a hard time, and at one point, his caregivers reach out to me because they said, "Man, we kind of know your name and stuff, but Coach Wimmer just keeps asking for you." And so, a couple of times we tried to connect, but they were trying to find times when he was the most viable, and we just couldn't find a good time to connect. So I never got to talk to him. But honest to God, it took me a while. Like by the end of the day, I was just full of tears, man. There's 4 people that have had the greatest impact in my life, and Coach Wimmer is one of them. And 3 of the 4 have passed away, and so it just kind of hit me that the people that helped shape me and mold me and are part of who I am was no longer there. And just the fire like that Coach Wimmer had, like the intensity that he does things, and he loves the same way. And so it's like, man, that love for me is not in the world anymore, even though it's not gone. But the physical person that gives me that isn't around anymore. And so I just started bawling, man, because I think when I first heard it, I was trying to be strong about it, like, oh man, that's too bad, and I didn't really want to feel what I was feeling. But then I allowed it to, allow myself to feel it, because this is a dude that deserves me to express my feeling and my heart and my sadness and my joy and my happiness and my gratitude. He deserves all of that. And so for me to hold any of that back in that moment would have been disrespectful to him, because he was just too big a part of who Ray Roberts is for me to try to hold that back and act like some tough guy about it. This is a dude I absolutely love with every freaking atom in my body. And there's nothing that I would not have done for him, because I know there's nothing that he would not have done for me. And even in the times where, I was probably headed down the wrong road, he was the dude that reeled me back in, and was like, no, that's not how it's going to happen. This is what you're going to do. And these are Coach Wimmer is just, I don't know what his relationship, if it was, listen to other guys, it sounds like it was the same, but I feel like mine was unique to me. And so I'm sure they feel the same way. And it's hard when you lose people that mean so much to you, that have meant so much to you, that I mean, it changed it changed my life. Like I'm telling you, like, um, we didn't have running hot water. Like I never had a new pair of jeans until Jason Wallace, my roommate's mom, bought them for me when I was at UVA. We never any type of vehicle we had. Had to be something that my dad built, and it fell apart every other day. It's like, so when I was coming to UVA, man, I was stepping way out of my element and way out of my comfort zone. And if you had looked at me on paper, there was no reason for me to be there except for Coach Wimmer. Like if on the paper, out of all the things that say I should or shouldn't be there, if his name is on it, that was the reason I was supposed to be there, because he wanted me there. And so that's how much that guy means to me. And that's when I say it changed my life forever. It changed my life. I met the mom of my kids there. Some of my best friends of all time are from there. Sean and Jason and Myron and Tyrone. Like those are my dogs. Tony Covington, Derek Boyd. Like those are my guys forever. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I would have never met them. And I can call those dudes at any time of the night, any time of the day. But it would have never happened if the connection wasn't made with Coach Wimmer. And all of those dudes were recruited by Coach Wimmer too. And so it was just this dude, his life. I don't know that if there's enough airtime and enough podcasts and enough interviews and enough words on social media or TV to express how much this dude means to so many people, because he was that type of guy. And he's a type of dude that's hard to find. And so I try to actually model my life after Coach Wimmer, man. I try to be there for all the people in my life. I try to show up big for young people, the work I do for Special Olympics. I was just telling my girlfriend the other night, like I don't enjoy all the traveling I do, but man, I'm exhausted when I'm done doing these presentations and working with these athletes, because I give them every ounce that I have. And that's what Coach Wimmer did. And so I try to give the people that I love and care for, people that reach out to me, that need help, whatever it is, I try to love them the way that Coach Wimmer loved me. And that, when I say changed my life, it wasn't just financially or football or whatever. He actually changed who I was and who I am.
He's got a lot of questions coming in.
I told you he's a sweet soul.
Yeah, he's got a lot of questions coming in. Ray, you're crushing this right now. This is coming from Georgia. Travis is a lifelong Virginia football fan, and he said, "I love the interview. The words from Mr. Roberts are inspiring right here, and he wants your best George Welsh story for the viewers and listeners."
Oh,
I know what this one is going to be.
My best George Welsh story is my first year at UVA. I was on the defensive line, and you do so many practices, and then we have these scrimmages. And at one of the scrimmages, I was going against Roy Brown and Chris. What was it? Chris Morris. That's not his name. Chris. The center. And they were setting me up. Like they would go like, "Hey, Ray, like slow down a little bit." And so I'd slow down, and then whack, they were just like, they were killing me. And so I'm like, "Hey man, you can't ask me to slow down and then go full speed like that." And so then the next time they did it, I just grabbed somebody's face mask and I just started throwing blows. And I'm punching anybody that was on offense. And I'm just going at it. And the next thing I know, I could feel something on my back. And it was Coach Welsh with his hat, and he was hitting me, going, "Get off the field, get off the field." And so I'm like, he's on my back. So I'm like, what am I supposed to do? The head coach is on my back. And so he kicked me out of practice. And so I was just like, man, like, I don't know what that means. Does that mean that I lost my scholarship? Am I fired? Like, what am I supposed to do? So I tried to take a few plays off and run back on the field. And he was like, "No, go to the locker room." And so I was just like, oh my gosh, like, man, if I tell my dad I got kicked off the football team, I'm going to be in like big trouble. Well, then Jason Wallace came in and Tyrone Lewis came in. They're like, "Hey man, like Coach Welsh just wants you to calm down. Like you need to calm down." And so it's a legendary story around UVA that he jumped on my back, beat me with his baseball cap. And I think at one point, I don't know if it was Coach Welsh told the story or not, but the two people that he like got into it and kicked out of practice like that was me and Herman. And so he was like, if you want to be a top 10 pick, get kicked out of practice by Coach Welsh. You know, yeah. So yeah, that's my story. Like, if most people that are close to the program, at least when I was around, they all know the story. It was like I was scared to death, but yeah, I got kicked out of practice by Coach Welsh after him jumping on my back trying to stop the fight I was in.
I think that's legend now.
Yeah, I've heard that one story too. The Herman he's referencing, viewers and listeners, Herman Moore, greatest wide receiver ever, playing in the National Football League as well. Questions are coming in so quickly here. How about this one? Best NFL story for you, and toughest guy to block in the National Football League.
I would say the best NFL story, like, is me getting drafted. But I mean, it was pretty incredible. But the year that Barry rushed for 2,053 yards when I was playing in Detroit, we had Coach Ross who had coached at Georgia Tech, which every day I would remind him, you do know that you guys stole that game from us. But after the first two games of the year, Barry only had about 11 carries and 53 yards. So we had this meeting, and they brought me and Herman. I think Don Mikowski was still on the team. So Detroit was like UVA North. And so Don was on the team, and then they brought in a couple other players, and the offense coordinator said, hey, like, what should we do? And I said, dude, I don't get paid to call the plays. I just block whatever you call. But if you're asking me, I would give it to number 20 until the shoes fell off. And I'm like, he's the best running back, in ever. And he's only had 11 carries after 2 games. Like, what does that mean? I'm like, I would have the world's biggest oxygen machine behind the bench and tons of shoes, because we're going to run him until he just can't run anymore. And from that day forward, that was before the third game, we rushed 14 straight weeks over 100 yards, and we rushed for exactly 2,000 yards in 14 games. And so I know it doesn't add up the same, but people always say, well, OJ did his 2,000 yards in 14 games. And we finished with 2,053 yards after starting with 53. So we rushed for 2,000 yards in 14 games. And so it was pretty cool to be part of that history and part of that select group of dudes that have blocked for 2,000-yard rushers. And so it was a pretty cool – that's like one of the coolest NFL stories for me, on a more like sentimental side, you dream of playing the NFL. And I can remember – when our first home game, and they said starting the left tackle from the University of Virginia, number 73, Ray Roberts, and I cried the whole way out. I was still crying when the first play. The coach is like, "Are you gonna be okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine, dude. It's just like this is like you're living your dream, like literally living the dream." And so it was an emotional thing for me, and so just about probably for the rest of my career, probably every fourth or fifth game where they would introduce the offense, I'd have that same type of response, because it was unreal that this is something you dreamed of doing and you're actually getting to do it. And so when they would introduce me, I would still kind of have like that emotional kind of response to it.
And for those that don't know, Ray was picked as the number 10 draft choice in the first round. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's a big deal.
That's a very big deal. That's a very big deal. More questions continue to come in. Viewers and listeners, we're trying to get as many of these as possible here. You mentioned the Aberdeen Barn. I think every football player that comes on this talk show right here has an Aberdeen Barn reference. I mean, how many scholarships were closed over ribeyes at the Aberdeen Barn here? Put the Aberdeen Barn in perspective. Stories from the Aberdeen Barn. A supporter of JerryRatcliffe.com.
Yes.
Give some love to the Aberdeen Barn, Ray Roberts.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, man, when on Friday nights after football games, my mom would make pork chops, and pork chops were our steak. Like that's the most expensive piece of meat we could afford. And so it's like, oh man, I can't wait to get this pork chop after the game. And so then we go to the Aberdeen Barn, and honestly, we weren't schooled in all this stuff. And so me and my mom and my dad were looking at the price of things, and we're like, well, who's paying for this? We're gonna just order these appetizers because we don't know, we can't foot this bill if we leave in here like this. And then Coach Wim was like, no, just order whatever you want. And so we're like, whatever you want, like anything, like yeah. So I'm looking down the thing and the prime rib. I'm like, well, shoot, that's what they say they're great at. Like, I want this thing called the prime rib. I had no idea what it was. I'm like, I want, that's what I want though, because it's the most expensive thing on here. And I would tell you that every time I come back to Charlottesville and go to the Aberdeen Barn, I get the prime rib because it's just that good. You know what I'm saying? And it's amazing how I don't know if they're still there, but for a while when I came back there, the staff was pretty much the same. And so it was cool how they would recognize you when you come in. Oh, Mr. Roberts, hey, come sit in this spot, blah, 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 blah. Pay for my appetizers, like that kind of stuff. And so it's hard to go through Charlottesville without stopping at the Aberdeen Barn. Like you said, it closed a lot of deals, but it's also it's a great food too. So it's and good people that work there.
Absolutely. They've been my longest standing sponsor, so I'm very and I love their food too.
You can't not love their food, right?
Oh yeah.
How
you
about
love
this?
that food? You don't like food.
Ray, what do you think of the state of college football today? And here's a follow-up question to that. With the transfer portal, I would bet, and I'm just talking out loud here, with the transfer portal, I would bet Ray Roberts, his first year, second year, when they're talking about switching from defense to offense, with the option of the transfer portal, maybe Tennessee would have been the destination. What do you make of state of college football now and the transfer portal and where we're all at?
Well, I will say this. Probably that early in my career, I probably would have jumped in the transfer portal. But once I was like intricate part of the team, we were building something different. It was like all these dudes from Virginia were staying at home. We had some of the better players from North Carolina, a few from like Pennsylvania area, and you could just tell that something different was happening there. That something was about to jump off. My first year, with Scott Sequels was a quarterback, and we did some good stuff. But everybody knew. Sorry that it's getting dark in here. Everybody knew that Sean was going to be the future of what we were doing. Because the dude was just a dynamic person and a dynamic leader. And then we could see in practice how great he was. And then we had all these other pieces, McGonigal at tight end, like that could do stuff, Herman at receiver, Dooley and Finkelstein, like all these dudes that we had that could play football. And then on the other side of the ball, we ended up with Chris and David. We had David Griggs and Lagerman were my first year. They were the biggest linebackers in the history of the world. But we had some dudes, Jason Wallace, Tyrone Lewis, that were Tony Covington, McMeans. Like we had some dudes that were ballers, and so it would have made it hard at that point to leave unless there was a mass exodus, because we were building something new and different for UVA. And so I think having survived my first year, I probably would not have left. As it relates to the state of the game right now, I've always felt like players should be compensated somehow. And because you generate a lot of revenue for a lot of other people and for the university, and there's even data that shows like when especially your football team is good, like your applications for the school go up. And so like it's impacting, a lot of different things. People donate more money to the university, all these different kinds of things. So you're really impacting a lot. And so people will say, well, you're getting a free education. Well, a lot of times that free education even has boundaries on it because there's classes you can't take. There's majors you can't have because of the time commitment that it takes to do football and practice and work out and train and all that kind of stuff. I changed my major twice at UVA. I started out as I wanted to be in an engineering school, but our practice times and stuff just wouldn't work for me to do all the labs. And then I was majoring in economics, and then all the economic classes were in the afternoon my second year. So then I couldn't do those because that's when we were practicing. So then I changed it to I just looked on my transcript and was like, hey, I got these communication classes, so this is what I'm a major in. And so it's almost like they're saying like you can have this house on the lake, but you can't use the water. You can't use the lake, And so people will use that sometimes. It's like, well, they're getting compensated with the education, but even that is limited to a degree. So I do appreciate that they came up with a system. I just think the system needs some tweaking, and I don't like that it's supposed to be name, image, and likeness, and it's become a pay to play kind of thing. And if that's what it's going to be, that's what it's going to be. But like at least bring some order to it. It just seems like a little too shooting from the hip kind of a thing, and you don't know if guys are being taken care of the right way. And I don't know. I'd have to have some other players speak on it, but I would just be curious to see what the dynamic in the locker room is between the guy that's getting $1 million and the guy that's getting nothing, but they're working all the same, and so it'd be interesting to see what that dynamic is. But I do like that the players are getting paid. Just don't like maybe the disorder of it, and I hope that they can bring something to it. And then I don't like people that say that kids are avoiding adversity by transferring, because to enter the transfer portal, you're entering adversity because there's a chance that you don't come out of the portal, and if that happens, you've lost your scholarship at the place you left, and you don't have a place to go to school and get your education. And there's no guarantee that the school you go to is going to be any better, that you're going to get any chances. So I like the idea that you get to bet on yourself. And I do like the idea that it invites adversity, and I don't like a lot of coaches that beat on it and say that all players don't want to work hard, they don't want to earn things, Well, then stay at the school you coach forever. Like, don't ever change. Don't ever leave and go find another job. Don't ever do what you do at your place the entire time for your whole freaking coaching career. And if you're going to say that, and so I do think there's a little narrative out there about our young people not wanting to earn and feeling entitled and all that kind of stuff. And all they're doing is they're doing what all of the rest of America does. They're taking their best opportunities where they feel like they can express themselves the best and make the best opportunity for themselves. And so I don't have any problem with the transfer, and it's just bringing some order to it.
Want to close her down, Hootie? That was a great answer right there.
Oh, that's terrific. Yeah, I mean, this has been a very enlightening interview, Ray, and I've talked to you so many times over the years. It's always so much fun because you have such great insight into not just college football, but life in itself. And we really appreciate your time, and especially your thoughts on Coach Wilmer. I think you probably had a closer relationship with him than any of his players. I know he loved them all, but I do think you were special to him. He talked to me about you a lot, and thank you so much for sharing some of those stories with us. We appreciate it.
Well, my battery's going to die in a second, so I just want to say thank you guys for having me on. But more importantly, thank you guys for celebrating Coach Wilmer. And I know that some people will say, like, oh, man, it's too bad we get to the end of someone's life before we celebrate them. But I'm almost 100% sure that the dudes that he impacted have all communicated that to Coach Wilmer in some form or fashion. And so this dude knows that we know that he loved us, and he knows that we loved him. Because we would go to the end of the earth to do anything for him, because he did that for us. And it'd be great. Like, I can't say that me and Coach Wilmer agreed on everything, but the one thing that we did agree on is that the humanity of people matters. And that's the level that we connected on. And because of that, like I said, he just changed my life forever. Great dude, love him to death, love his family. Will always remember him and think about him, and know that he is part of my journey, and he's part of who I am.
Thank you, Ray. That was awesome.
Thanks,
we appreciate you, Ray.
Absolutely.
Love you, brother.
All right, you guys have a good one.
You too, Ray. Thank you,
All right.
Ray Roberts, ladies and gentlemen.
Peace.
The man is one of the best in the game right there. Judah, if you want to go to the studio camera, and then we'll switch seats. And then make sure we get these mics on for straight up. Make sure these mics are on if you could. Ray Roberts, ladies and gentlemen, an All-American, a 9-season National Football League player, and just a man who has a way with words. And you can see the impact that Danny Wilmer has had on so many that have matriculated through the University of Virginia, through Scott Stadium, and through George Welsh's football program. Hootie Ratcliffe, as good as an interview as we've ever done here on the Jerry and Jerry Show.
Yeah, Ray is excellent in those terms. He was always really good, even in college. But, since going to the NFL and now, having graduated from the NFL and gone on to good things in life, he does his own podcast now. I think he calls it Big Ray's Garage or something like that. And even when he was in Seattle, I used to have him on an old radio show I did back in the mid-'90s for, I think it was WCHV back then. And he would do, he had a radio show while he was a Seahawk out there in Seattle, and he would not just talk football, but he would review movies and stuff like that. So he's a well-rounded individual and well-spoken and a very smart guy.
I appreciate Ray's time, and I love hearing the nostalgia with this Virginia football program. We'll segue, as you get headlines on screen, to basketball. Ron Sanchez, Florida State. Is this Ron Sanchez's last home basketball game as coach of UVA?
Well, it very well could be. I'm thinking that it most likely will be. I don't have any inside information, or it's just speculation and just reading the tea leaves. But I'm having a feeling that it probably will be, but I could be wrong. He may get a second chance. Nobody really knows that. But if I were having to place a huge bet on it, that's probably where I would throw my money. But I hope he can find some magic and make things work. I think he's a great guy. And
so your money is on this is his last home basketball game as coach of UVA?
I think so. I think the Clemson game probably did some damage, even though they were running up against one of the more experienced teams, not only in the ACC but in the country, and they just were manhandled and had a big lead, not a big lead, but a healthy lead at halftime, and all that just came apart at the seams in the second half, and they couldn't do anything about it. And I don't know. I just reading the tea leaves, it seems like that there's a lot of call for change, which is sad because you could be saying goodbye to not only Ron Sanchez but a staff with a lot of former Virginia players on it, and that's always a sad thing.
Is there a situation where the head coach is replaced, and the Willifords and Colemans and Isaiah and Kyle are kept on staff because of their ties to UVA, or does the head coach come in, clean house, and bring in his own staff?
Well, it depends on the coach. If it's somebody who has any familiarity with Virginia, they may want to keep a couple of guys who know the area for recruiting purposes and know the program and what it takes to get a kid into school here, into the program, and all the facets of UVA, because it is a different place. But if it's someone from outside who has no connection whatsoever with Virginia, he may want to bring in his own staff or put together a new staff, and he may consider keeping someone, but there's no guarantees of that. But I don't know. I mean, we could be wrong. Carla Williams may be thinking that she may not be able to get who she wants. They may be after a couple of people that they can't get.
Shaka Smart and Ryan Odom, the short list.
That seems to be the short list, and who knows if Shaka Smart would want to leave and come here.
I don't see why he would, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people see that.
I just do not see why he would leave a program in Marquette where he is the biggest fish in the pond. He's in maybe the best conference in America, and he is in a hot recruiting bed for an Atlantic Coast conference that is not the ACC of yesteryear.
Yeah. Yeah, he's well established, and like you said, he's got a top 25 team. He's well compensated. Not one of the higher paid coaches in the country, but I was ended up being wrong about their arena. I Googled it, and it said they played in Al McGuire Arena, but apparently I don't know if they play some games there or not, but apparently they play in a 17,000 seat arena.
Okay.
There, I don't know if it's the Bucks Arena or if there's another arena. I'm not that familiar with Milwaukee. But
Was that a viewer and listener that pointed that out?
Yeah, somebody on my Twitter pointed that out, and so thanks for that. I appreciate it. I don't like being wrong, and but that's what Google told you when you look it up. I mean, who knows? Who knows what direction this thing's going to go in? But something's going to obviously happen quickly in the next couple of weeks.
Viewers and listeners, what do you think? Ron Sanchez's last home basketball game, he got Florida State, 9 o'clock tip-off. No one likes the 9 o'clock tip-off. ACC Network.
No.
This is a game that could go Virginia's way. Game could go against you. I mean, Florida State and UVA, very similar records here. What went wrong first against Clemson?
I think Clemson at halftime made some nice adjustments. They had attacked Virginia in the paint in the first half, but Virginia was able to counter that with really good shooting. And I think they just turned up their defensive intensity in the second half and shut some of that down. Virginia only scored 18 points in the second half up until the last few minutes when it didn't matter anymore. And
Virginia just can't match up inside.
You can't beat a top 15 team scoring 18 points in most of a half.
Yeah, and I mean, interior play continues to be an issue for Virginia.
They gave up 48 points. No, 48 or 52. 48 points in the paint.
It's just too much.
And that means over the last two games they've given up 100 points in the paint. And over the last four games, they're giving up an average of 44 point something points in the paint per game over the last four games. That's just, it's hard to win basketball games like that.
Yeah, Kofi and Buchanan in particular are getting manhandled inside. They just do not have the strength or the size to match up. Robinson gets in there and he's got upside, but he's constantly in foul trouble. And you know, frankly, Anthony Robertson, while he could finish around the rim when given a chance to flush the basketball, dunk the basketball, his offensive game is limited. Things have to go right for Virginia to win in pretty much every aspect of the game. And against Florida State, if McNeely and if Ames and if Rhodey are not connecting from downtown or from the perimeter, this team is limited offensively.
Yeah, no question about it. Scott German and I were sitting together at the game in the press box, and we were commenting, what if Virginia had one of those two big guys from Clemson on this team, big physical rim protector, inside scorer type guys that they had. One of them scored 21, one scored and had 12 rebounds.
What if Ryan Dunn comes back?
Oh yeah, that too. You got to. Even though he's undersized, he was still a good defender and
long, great leaper.
Yeah, no question.
Great rebounder.
But they don't have that, and until they do, they're going to be susceptible to the same thing.
Yeah, Florida State tonight, 9 o'clock tip, last home game here. This could be the third to last game of the season for Virginia, folks. You got Syracuse to close the regular season, then the ACC tournament. We don't know what's going to happen with the NIT, if they get an NIT berth or not. Only time will tell. What do you got with the Seminoles here?
Well, Florida State's lost 3 in a row coming in. They're not the typical Florida State team that we've seen over the years. They have the identical records, Virginia and ACC, 7-11. They're tied for 10th, so the winner of this one will be possibly still tied for 10th or 9th or whatever with Pitt. But you know, they're the second tallest team in the country. Even though they only have one 7-footer this year, they usually have like 5 or 6 of them. But they do have a couple of 6'11" guys, and one of them is Malik Ewan. I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but he's leading the ACC in field goal percentage, and he's made 22 of his last 24 field goal attempts, which is unheard of. That's 91, almost 92%. He's shooting 63% in ACC games only for the season, and he's a weapon. And then senior guard Jameer Watkins has scored over 20 points over his last 3 games, and that's against Louisville, Carolina, and Duke. So if he can lighten it up against those guys, you got to watch out for him. Leonard Hamilton's last season, obviously, he needs one more win for his 200th ACC regular season win. He's already 5th winningest coach in ACC history behind Krzyzewski, Dean Roy, and Gary Williams from Maryland. So his last trip to JPJ in Charlottesville for a basketball game, and Leonard's a really good guy.
Great guy. He's a great guy.
One of the best guys. And,
yeah. Hall of Fame coach.
He's no question. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He's been at Florida State for 23 seasons.
Made Florida State basketball.
He really did. He turned around. They were sort of lost in the wilderness, kind of like Virginia was for a while.
A team nobody cared about at Florida State. All they cared about was football.
Yeah. Yeah, and he turned. I remember going to some games down in Tallahassee before he got there, and even early in his career there.
A couple hundred people in the stands.
Yeah, they would always. They were all. For some reason, it seems like Virginia played them late in the season in Tallahassee, and there were 3 events going on in Tallahassee. Always the same Saturday that Virginia was there, or Sunday. It was the Florida State baseball game, Florida State basketball game with Virginia, and a boat show. And the basketball game was outdrawn by tons more at the boat show and even the baseball game. So it was not a big deal in those days. And he turned that around. Give him a lot of credit.
He made them relevant. Folks, potentially 3 games left in the season as Virginia plays its last ball game in the John Paul Jones Arena with Syracuse to close out the regular season. The Ray Roberts interview was fantastic, Hootie Ratcliffe.
Yeah, Ray is a special guy, and I hope he never loses touch with Charlottesville and UVA because he's an important part of what happened here. And I mean, to me, one of the great things in my career is seeing guys like him just rise from the ashes and become an important part of our society, and well-educated, successful football player, but more successful in life. You heard him. I mean, he was dirt poor. He couldn't even afford a pair of jeans and had no running water in their house, and when he was growing up. So for him to one of my favorite quotes of all time, and I think it's from an anonymous person. I don't know where it came from ages ago, but it's judge me not from the heights I've reached, but from the depths I've climbed. And I don't think there's a better example of that than Ray Roberts.
Ray Roberts, the interview was absolutely awesome, guys. Inspiring interview and a fantastic paying homage to Danny Wilmer, who is in a better place right now. I encourage you to read Jerry Ratcliffe's words on Danny Wilmer. They're on his website, jerryratcliffe.com. We'll watch the game tonight. It's a 9 o'clock tip, folks. Let's see what happens. Not only for this Virginia men's basketball team, not only for Ron Sanchez, but the future of this program, which is certainly a future that's in flux at this point. Judah Wickhauer behind the camera, Jerry Ratcliffe, the star of our show. The show airs and is archived anywhere you get your social media and podcasting content. And we encourage you to check out jerryratcliffe.com as we do each and every day. Thank you kindly for joining us. For Hootie Ratcliffe and Judah Wickhauer, my name is Jerry Miller. So long.